Respond on Battalion 3 Fire Ground, 1831 Robert Street. Report of a fire. Rescue 16.
Columbus Fire Engine 16's on the scene. Lieutenant Polaski will be in charge. 16's accountability, commands mobile.
Mr. Stevens. Columbus Fire Battalion 3, send the second medic back here. We got a firefighter down in the basement.
This is the house where Lieutenant Polaski went down at 1831 Robert. We were sent here on February 6th. It was about 10 to 11. On the way here, we got reports from the fire alarm office that they were getting multiple calls on this as far as being a fire. And when we got here, we had heavy smoke showing and had a working fire here. On arrival at this fire, it was a normal fire for us. We've been on a lot of basement fires, and this one didn't seem any different. And it was a routine fire up until the point where Lieutenant Polaski collapsed in the basement, and that's what made this a unique experience for all of us. The family was outside. I talked to them initially. They said everyone was out of the house, and they thought that the fire was in the basement.
We knew where it was, but we didn't know where the stairs were just yet. So as I went into the kitchen door here, I went straight across and found a door that would only open partially. And I really didn't think it was the basement, but I went and put my tool in it and realized I didn't fill a floor, so I had to move a freezer out of the way and open the door completely, and that was the basement stairs.
And I met up with JD and Jeff Ross right at the top of the basement stairs. Walking by the house, there was still fire coming out of the basement window. They hadn't gotten to the seat of the fire. A primary search had been done on the first floor, and we needed to get a primary in the basement.
I radioed to the crew of Engine 16 with Lieutenant Polaski, who was in charge of that truck, to bring the line to the side door on the D side, and showed them where to advance the line down the stairs. The basement was pretty chopped up. You can see all the debris in the picture here that was pretty much all over the basement floor. There was also a lot of clothes and things hanging from the pipes down there, which restricted your movement a little bit.
There was pretty considerable smoke coming out of the entire first floor and what looked like a second floor, which actually just turned out to be an attic area. Fire seemed to be kind of run-of-the-mill. I mean, it's a small house. Companies were doing what they needed to do. The engine company and the rescue company were in the basement.
The only room that we really didn't have an all clear on was the fire room. So I went over to Lieutenant Polaski and said, you know, that's what we needed. And he said that they did have an all clear in the fire room. So I transmitted that to Battalion 3, and at that time he put a situation contained on the fire.
Polaski actually had gotten a hold of Rescue 16's radio and was responding back that, hey, we have the fire, we got it knocked down, and you could see the fire visibly get darkened down.
You still couldn't see that well, but you could see a figure just fall backwards and collapse.
I was walking over towards Lieutenant Polaski to tell him we were heading up the stairs when I saw him go down in the basement.
I heard a crash behind me and turned around, and through the smoke could see Lieutenant Polaski on the floor.
My next transmission was talking to Captain Bianconi, Ladder 24. We were in the front yard, and because the fire had burned for what had amounted to a considerable amount of time on the front, I wanted to make sure that there was stability on that front living room floor. Right as we were doing that, I hear a radio transmission come over from Rescue 16, and in my mind I hear them say, "Mayday, firefighter down." But it's that thing you don't expect to come across the radio, especially, and my first thought is the fire's been contained. And then he comes back on immediately again and repeats it and says, "We have a firefighter down the basement, we are bringing him out."
And we knew when we were working to get him up the stairs that it wasn't good, but that was the point where you realized, you know, this man's dying right in front of us.
Once he went down back there, the crew reacted. We got to him. The Mayday went out. He was dragged across the floor to the base of the stairs. The problem with these stairs was they almost dead-ended right into the block wall. There was a very, very small landing to this. It was about 20 by 36 space at the base of these stairs where it dead-ended into that block wall. Very steep. So one of the challenge was getting him over to the base of these stairs, getting him turned and started up. We were able to do that. The guys on the rescue and Mike King from the engine pulled him up 2 or 3 stairs. The idea was to get Dave Pence under his legs and for us to pull from above. Got him up 2 or 3 stairs. His bottle got caught. Dave pulled back on him, got his bottle released. We went up again, and a strap got caught. We were still operating in pretty much very limited visibility. So Dave's trying to figure out what straps caught. So once he was freed from that area on the stairs, and this picture shows a couple of the gaps that we're suspecting were caught. Decision was quickly made to remove his air pack. So Dave took that off, which freed him up. Once that was freed, he was back up the top of the stairs very quickly. Jeff Ross had taken a piece of webbing out of his coat, had wrapped it around Lieutenant Polaski's chest with a girth hitch in the back, which gave us a handhold at the top. Dave got under his legs and pushed as the strap was pulled from above, and he got moved up the stairs very quickly.
Well, I had a lot of confidence in Rescue 16. They have are our trainers for firefighter down situations. I had confidence there bring out. He was giving me clear direction, which helped me out as an incident commander tremendously. He's telling me, hey, we are bringing him out. To me, that means he doesn't need additional companies coming into the scene.
That everything happened so quickly, and there really was very little talk.
The guys working on getting him up the stairs, there was very little communication because we all had trained together and worked together a good bit. We knew what was going on. Jeff did an outstanding job of getting webbing around him right away, which helped us a lot getting him up the stairs. Dave knew to get down between his legs, get his legs up high, get his face in there tight so that the movement went the best as I think it could have gone.
One person could be at the top. I had put his legs over my shoulders, and Jeff said 1, 2, 3, and we went up. I think it took us 2 pushes for me, pulls for Jeff, to get him up the rest of the way. And at the top of the stairs, as soon as we got him to the top of the stairs, the crews up there took him and started the advanced life support.
We have a small house. One of the problems we have on a lot of small house fires is congestion on stairways. We didn't want to impede the progress of getting that firefighter out of the basement. At that time, I didn't know who the firefighter was that was down. Crews were sent in. I immediately called for the medic unit, Medic 18, to return to the scene, and their placement ended up being perfect because they actually had come in from the east, and they were able to back up right to the front door.
There's a lot of commotion on the scene, really fast, and one of our guys, Jeff Evans, ran outside. He was dropping his bottle, and I asked him, I said, Jeff, what's going on in there? I said, I thought I heard him say firefighter down. He looked at me and says, it's ski.
And I had to make it known to everyone that I needed Lieutenant Polaski to be immediately removed from the scene, that we were not going to be working him in this house that was still on fire, and that we needed to bring him out to the front porch. I knew from an incident command standpoint that it was absolutely the right thing to do. Though I had safety concerns about the floor, I had concerns about the building still being on fire, but I also knew in the back of my mind that if things didn't turn out well, that was going to be a subject to criticism. But I feel today, and I'm glad I made that decision, I felt that I had other things that I needed to be concentrating on. While Lieutenant Polaski was being taken care of immediately, from an incident command standpoint, I had to make sure that the incident was still managed, that the fires were still being maintained, that all the crews were safe, including accountability. Immediately when we heard the Mayday call, Lieutenant Lamb from EMS 13 was standing right behind me.
My job inside there was still to make sure things are getting done and look for anything that needed to be supported. Or again, I think our guys did an outstanding job. They were self-motivated. They knew the direction we needed to go based on the current condition of our lieutenant.
I know that Medic 16 was kind of blocked in, and it had been some time before we would have been able to jockey the truck to get it on the road to the hospital. So Medic 18 kind of took over from there. We just kind of passed him off out the front door.
Everybody who grabbed a hold of him, Lieutenant Polaski never hit the floor. He was pretty much picked up and handed through the kitchen.
I was just very proud of the whole battalion and how everything worked together. And when we got him to the top of the steps, the medics were ready with the cot, right there, and there was a lot of hands on him, and immediately he was taken care of.
The night was very snowy. There was a lot of ice and packed snow on the steps, the yard. So everyone did a fantastic job carrying the lieutenant, considering the conditions with the hose laying everywhere.
Being the second medic, sometimes we're far away, and Jeff had the idea of, coming in from the east side off Robert Street to get us a little closer to the scene in case we needed to be used that night.
Thankfully they were able to realize that he, was in VTAC or VFib and end up defibrillating him, and off to the hospital they went.
So we made it from the house, and we were en route to Medic 18 at this time. I think there was 6 of us, 6 or 7. We jumped in the truck. I was in this position that I am right now, and I continued to do CPR on Lieutenant Polaski.
And we defibrillated him the second time. During this time, they were also drawing up the amiodarone to give him. And after the second defibrillation, he had a little longer run of normal sinus. So, the outlook that I had, or the vision that I had, was different from the guys that he had left on the scene. The guys in the back of the truck saw him responding to our treatment, and we knew that there was a chance of him having a positive outcome. The guys back at the scene, the last thing they'd seen was CPR being done on their officer.
Here at the scene, watching that medic go away, and at that point, our last view of Ski was, he wasn't breathing. He was being defibrillated. He was being intubated. No pulses. So, the chief got us all together, the guys from 16s, and we loaded up into the rescue and headed over to the hospital. And that was a very emotional ride, because at that point, we had seen people in this situation before who didn't survive, and that was definitely on our mind on the way to the hospital. That the last time we saw Ski, he was dead.
So I think we were all beating ourselves up, in the back of the rescue on the way there, just trying to figure out what's just happened. So it was just a really emotional time on the way there to the hospital.
I remember the ride to the hospital in the rescue, running lights and sirens, was like a surreal moment. I mean, just like, how did this happen? It was pretty emotional time, for all of us.
We got a good heart rate back partway to the hospital, which really made everybody feel pretty good. It kind of brought a little sigh of relief to everybody that what we were doing is good. Even just because you get a heart rate back doesn't mean it's over with, but it kind of it brought the emotions down a little bit that we got him back like that. And we, the biggest thing we realized is the last time a lot of guys saw him is he was in a rest.
He regained pulses in the back of the truck on our way to the hospital. Actually started trying to breathe on his own at times. The IV became dislodged, and I went to start a second IV on him and looked up at his face, and a tear rolled out of his eye. And that was hard to see. We spoke to him, explained what was going on, but I felt at that point that he had some kind of clue that something good was going to happen. I just had a really good feeling, and that was something I got to see. The guys in the back of the medic got to see that none of the other guys at the scene knew anything about. And we got him to the hospital with the pulses, trying to breathe. When we got him into the trauma room, he was very combative. The hospital staff did a wonderful job of trying to control him, but he was, it was a great sight to see him moving and fighting them. And I'll never forget the look on the guys' faces when they got off the rescue and when I told them that he was in there fighting. It was just, I can't even describe the look of relief on their face. We knew that he still had a long road, but I can't imagine what those guys went through on their way over to the hospital, knowing what they'd seen, the last thing they saw
we get to the hospital and there's a lot of commotion, and the brass is showing up and everybody's showing up, and the staff at the hospital did a real good job of trying to deal with all these firemen that are showing up, and everybody's concerned and wanting to know what's going on. And
I was not able to find out till about an hour later. I was able to contact Chief Walton and was finally able to find out that Lieutenant Polaski had responded to the treatment, and this time that things were looking much better than they were here at the scene.
What all the rest of the guys are out even wondering more because they can't even see him. I at least got to be there and watched when he came to and when he spoke his first words. And I know him so well, it didn't take me long to realize, oh my gosh, he's going to be all right.
So we seen Lieutenant Polaski go down, and a lot of people wondering, what goes through your mind and what you're thinking. But at the moment, your first thought is to get him out. I personally think it's a little more stressful when it's one of your own. You kind of block things out with civilians. You kind of separate yourself. But I felt like once we realized what was going on with him, everybody reacted pretty quickly and pretty much went back to their training.
When one of your own go down, especially guys, nice of a guy as Mike is, there's really no way to describe that, but somehow, your training does take over. You do realize that there are basic steps that you need to take.
If it weren't for the experience and the training that we do get in Columbus, I'm sure the situation probably wouldn't have ended as well. But luckily, our training took over, and not much needed to be said to each other, and all the things that needed to get done were done, and everything was done great, and everybody did an amazing job.
That's the best thing about training and learning how to do it, is you don't have to stop and think what needs to be done. It's automatic. The more you train, the more you learn different ways to do things, the better off you are.
And I would highly recommend training in those scenarios, basically getting ourselves out and really finding out exactly what it's going to take to manpower-wise and to get that accomplished under those circumstances, because it's going to be a lot harder than what you picture.
If we would have never done this training, the situation might have been different.
The training that we do every day just get paid off that night throughout the whole incident from beginning to end.
If we don't train, we're not prepared when we need to do it. And that's why we do train, because that situation doesn't happen every day. In fact, there's some guys that work their whole career and never have that happen to them. But when it does happen, you need to be ready. And we were ready that day. And Mike Polaski's here today because he was a leader that made sure that we trained. And he paid forward, and now he's reaping the reward.
All right, the video that you've been viewing has shown you the men who were involved in the incident that I was a part of that happened on February 6th. It's the run that no firefighter ever wants to be on or be a part of. But it should be in the back of your mind every day you go to work that this is something that could happen. It could happen to you, it could happen to somebody you work with. What we do is inherently dangerous by its nature. It's not something you want to have happen, but when it does, believe me, you will face the test, you will pass the test. And you will do this because of what you've been trained to do. You'll find a way to take the name away from the face of the person that you're dealing with. And you will deal with it like you've been trained to deal with it as a professional. Everything you've been told to do, everything you've been taught to do, you will do. and it has to do with the fact that this is what we do. It's what we've chosen to do. And the fact that we've chosen to do this says something about the type of people that we are, the type of people that we should be to do this job. It requires us to understand that what we do is important. It has a profound effect on the communities that we work in, the communities that we live in. Because when people call us, they call us because they don't know what else to do. They have no way of solving the problem that they've been faced with. We are in the emergency business. This is what we do. We solve other people's problems. The underlying reason that they did what they did is that over the 29 years that I've been a lieutenant at this station, the men and women that have come through this door and worked at this station and in this battalion have been taught to believe that what we do is important. It does make a difference. We do impact people's lives. And that you come to work every day understanding that we can and we do make a difference. We will impact people's lives, either positively or negatively, when we go across that door plate to answer their call for help. Our job is to see that everything we do is done to make sure that the effect we have is positive. We can't win every time. Sometimes things are beyond our scope and above what we can get, what we can accomplish, and people do die. But I truly believe, and I'm sitting here talking to you in this training video, because the men of Station 16 and Battalion 3, they believe. They believe every day they come to work that they can and they will make a difference in another person's life. And that's what they view as their job. And that's how they approach what they do. And I'm alive because of it.
From a lessons learned perspective on the fire on Roberts Road involving Lieutenant Polaski and his rescue from the basement, the number one lesson learned I can get is that the companies had done what they were supposed to do before the incident happened. This is an 800 square foot house, a bread and butter fire. Nobody expected anything bad to be happening on the situation. But we had an accountability board that was fully stocked. It wasn't just announced, but the names and company members were already on that board. So when the PAR went out, or the Mayday went out, we were able to get that established very quickly. The crews inside had trained multiple times on rescuing their own from a situation just like this. So there wasn't a time that they had to figure out what to do. And I can't stress enough how the training that the companies that were on the scene had done in the past and the efforts that they had put in the past that helped them on this scene that nobody wanted to be on. This is the last thing as an incident commander type of run that I wanted to be a part of. I was very proud of the crews that were on that run because of what they did. Rescue 16, Engine 16, Ladder 24, Ladder 13, all those companies that were involved, Engine 18, that were intimately involved in rescuing Lieutenant Polaski from the basement, had pre-planned every one of these things in regard to a training exercise. They'd done Rescue Your Own. These things came to fruition and made this rescue a success. If they had not practiced beforehand from a lessons learned, the time that it would have taken to get him up out of the basement would have been extended. The results that ended up, because it wasn't extended, were tremendous. So all I can say from a lessons learned perspective is you have to have those things in place beforehand on every fire because you never know what's going to happen. You have to have the accountability board in place. You had to have backup lines in place. We had to have fans in place. And we had to have a RIC team standing by and crews that had trained on what to do if the worst case scenario came out.
You know, a few of the lessons learned with us is, you know, you can always do things better. So we went back and we critiqued ourselves quite a bit. We went over a lot of different ways of getting this done. The training and the Save Your Own stuff is vital. And it's a good thing now because the recruits at Columbus, when they go through the academy, they spend a whole week doing nothing but learning these techniques and training over and over and over again. A couple of the other things that we know is that the crews that work together and train together, we perform better together. we all worked together. The crews that were involved with this rescue of Lieutenant Polaski out of the basement, we all worked together and we trained together. So there was very minimal talking going on at that point. We just kind of knew what to do and knew what the other's actions were going to be. So that was very important. Just as a reference for times here, the Mayday, this all comes from the radio logs. From the time of the Mayday to the time he hit the kitchen floor was 3 minutes. He was en route to the hospital in approximately 8 minutes and was on arrival at the hospital after regaining pulses in 16 minutes. This was a real snowy night. The roads were bad. It's about a 4.5 to 5 mile trip from the Robert Street address to the hospital. You always need to learn more than one way of doing everything. No matter what it is you're training on, don't just learn that one way and say, this will probably work every time, because that's not the way it's going to be. You're going to need to learn 3 or 4 ways of doing everything, and maybe one of those ways will work, or it'll be a combination of 3 or 4 ways that will actually get the job done. If we hadn't trained on some of the things that we were thrown at on this rescue, we might have failed miserably and had a different outcome. But we had done this, and we'd done it over and over and over again, and it really paid off for us at this incident. Another thing to remember, this all happened after a situation contained. So I mean, everyone was kind of gearing down and starting to pack things up when this happened. And as soon as the Mayday went out, everyone reacted, did what they were supposed to do. The engine crew made sure that the fire didn't build back up while the rescue was going on. Everything was in place when we got him to the top of the stairs for treatment, and everybody just did what they needed to do. The ladder company got a fan blowing down the stairs on us, which increased our visibility dramatically, which helped a lot on the final move up the stairs. We knew that there was a strap caught on his SCBA bottle on one of the treads of the stairs, and we knew that we had to get that off to get him up the steps as quickly as possible. Different situation would had a different response from us. High heat, him breathing, we wouldn't have been able to remove his SCBA. But this situation, this was the best decision and the quickest decision to make. The strap on the bottle, once that bottle was removed, it freed him, and his mask stayed intact, and we moved him up the stairs to the crews upstairs that were waiting to give him treatment. So, when you're doing the training, you get tired, you don't know if you can do it again, do it one more time, because that one more time might be what, sparks something in your brain that you might use later on to get something done to where you're saving one of your brother's lives. Bottom line is, if the rescue would have failed here and he wouldn't have been moved out of that basement in a rapid way, nothing else would have mattered. All the other treatment would have been done, and it would have been done heroically, but if it would have taken us a long time to get him out of there, I don't know. It probably had a different outcome here.